as the peace and love generation. We proved our credentials those 4 days, 51 years ago. It was peaceful. It's such a cliche, but everyone I met was so nice. That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I asked, who did I ask? Maybe I asked last night. Oh yeah. Jim Shelley, who's a docent at Bethel Woods and a Woodstock attendee. I said, do you know why that hamburger stand got burned down? Wavey's famous kind of exclamation from the stage. And I said, was that an act of violence? He goes, I think it was intentionally burned down. I'm like, well, you did have one little act of violence there, but that's minimal. Arson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Arson.
So there was some arson at Woodstock.
Yeah, there was some arson. But I think he said to me that people were pissed off because of the price of the hamburgers or the price of something. So, which is an interesting take. I don't know if that's entirely true.
So for Food for Love?
No, there's like this independent cat that had a hamburger stand.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, Michael Lang specifically told me there was Food for Love.
Love, yep.
And when they started to run low on stuff, they just quadrupled the price of everything.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not great. Not a great business practice. I believe that's known as gouging.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, it was a peaceful event. Yes, these were nice people, but that's
Food for Love was cobbled together, though, right? That was because there were supposed to be proper vendors brought in.
Well,
that couldn't make it in.
He wanted to get Nathan's hot dogs, which would have been fantastic,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it was just time because of moving the venue that put everyone up against the wall very quickly.
Yeah.
And there was just stuff that they weren't able to do properly, because of time, and also because they had no idea that many people were going to show up.
Yeah.
I still don't think 3 people is enough to run a concession, even if it had only been the 40,000 people they were expecting or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, clearly it was more than anyone was. I mean, Mike, when you went, did you have any concept that there were going to be 500,000 people there? The answer has to be no, right?
Well, of course not. We didn't know what we were getting into. Nobody did. But Thursday, when I fell asleep on the ground in front of the stage and woke up Friday morning, that's when I realized, because I just rubbed my eyes and I turned around and I said, holy shit. Yeah. And I saw the people and I woke Neil up and that's when we realized. And then, of course, they kept referring to it from the stage, Orlo Guthrie specifically. The New York State Thruway is closed, man. We knew, and we talked to each other about the fact that the whole world's watching. We knew the whole world's watching as early as Friday during the concert.
Huh. Yeah, well, if the whole world was indeed watching and you were aware of it, I mean, that says a lot about why it was a peaceful event. A lot of the people I talked to were like, no, we were aware that the spotlight was kind of on us and that something was being asked of us to just keep it together. And if we can successfully get through this and keep it together, it will reflect well on us.
Exactly. John Morris and Chip Monk were wonderful. Yeah. And I listened to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard they were kind of like, because I focused so much of my book on the sound system, that the sound system wasn't just a projection of music, but it was also a lifeline, an oral lifeline to the crowd, to soothe the crowd. Hanley always told me in the years I spent with him that, one of the biggest mistakes, in particular at Woodstock 99, not to bring up any negativity here, was that there were lulls in the music. There wasn't music played at certain intervals, and that's a big no-no for any festival.
Yeah,
you want to keep, music soothes the beast in that way. And I think that the sound reinforcement system helped the interactions between the crowd and helped them feel easier about a very potentially anxious situation. I mean, I know people with social anxiety, you don't want to have them smack dab in the middle of hundreds. I mean, even I get freaked out when I'm in like a mosh pit. I mean, in my olden days, or in my younger days, and up close pushed against a crowd, a force of a crowd is very scary, But hey, so on that note, we have somewhat of a crowd watching us. We got about 20, 30 people watching on different live feeds here. I'm John Kane, author of, and I'll keep this quick, Pilgrims of Woodstock, which came out last year, and The Last Seat in the House, which is the history of or the life and career biography of Bill Hanley, the sound engineer of Woodstock. What's your books, guys? Plug.
Mike?
I have my cousin Marla, who introduced me to Bill Hanley, can't seem to watch us.
This is what you need to do, because
they don't need Zoom. They just have to go on Facebook, right?
Yeah, well, no, they have to be friends with Bill Hanley, or you need to share it on your feed. So you're friends with Bill Hanley, and if you watch it, you can watch it on his page. If you go to his page, and then you share it from his page.
Well, they waited too long to ask me.
Well,
so
no.
My name is Mike Greenblatt, and my book is Back to Yasgurs Farm. Well, in a minute. It's a great book. I took the brown acid. You feel it. You're scared. You're alone. You're hungry. You're thirsty. Stuff in this book like no other book. But these two guys have great books too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dan,
I'm Dan Bukszpan, author of Woodstock, 50 Years of Peace and Music. And I had the unfortunate experience, of sitting next to Mike at an event at Bethel Woods, and one of the central pillars of my book was that there was no brown acid at Woodstock. Then I'm sitting next to Mike, who took the brown acid, so it's like, then I had to sit there and kind of take the L on that one. But maybe you want to shed a little light on that, because when I talked to you about it, it sounded like you said there really wasn't anything wrong with it, or you didn't seem. Well, you have a good story about it, so I'll just let you.
I loved the brown acid.
Yeah.
It's fabulous. Thank God for the brown acid. I would have been coming out during that 4-hour delay. I would have been freaked out being so cold and drenched and hungry and thirsty. But because I was tripping, the visual panorama in front of me was so intense and so wonderful that the brown acid was fine.
I heard that there's a lot of myths, in especially in Hanley's book, where I really try to uncover his journey and all of the journeys of all of his crew, and in that, even though there's technical stuff, I try to debunk these myths, about the social stuff that was happening, and was it just brown acid? Well, no, I heard it was different. There were all sorts of different colored acids that were not.
That came out on the soundtrack. When I heard that big 32-disc soundtrack, I heard, the pink acid, the blue acid, and I'm thinking, where do these acids come from 50 years later? But apparently, right, that's correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
I asked Wavy Gravy, but that was every single person who I interviewed for my book, I asked about the brown acid. So my contention that it wasn't there was based on interviews with 130 people. And when I spoke to Wavy Gravy about it, and I was like, was there brown acid? He goes, there were 800 colors of acid, dude, which makes sense. And what you're saying now, that it was actually the pink acid, and the fuchsia acid, and the purple acid, it's I think, acid agrees with you or it doesn't. It has a lot to do with personal chemistry, and I'm sure there are people who had a bad time on the brown acid, but maybe they were just people who don't like acid. That's out there, that exists.
Well, you have to have control of your environment when you do acid, and no one had any control. No. So I could see where people would freak out. But as Wavy Gravy himself said from the stage, it's not like it's poison. It's just poorly manufactured. So my advice would be to take half a tab.
Yeah, right, yeah.
His story on how, he calms people down, it's hilarious.
Right.
I love that so much. Yeah. So we should give a show. We all met last year. Oh boy, Imagine if the pandemic was last year. We would have really been bummed out.
I was going to say I'm really happy that Woodstock happened in 1969 and not 1970,
right?
because we would be some sad motherfuckers today with like boxes and boxes of books that nobody wants.
But you do realize what happened 50 years later on the exact same geographical locale, almost at the exact same time, that same monsoon ripped through our 50-year author's tent. We had to be evacuated.
Yes.
And I went in the VIP section clutching these two big, heavy boxes of books. I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah, that's right.
It was an emergency situation.
I can't tell you how much I enjoyed myself. Like we all met there. So we have Bethel Woods Museum to thank for that. I love Bethel Woods. I think they do a great job. You know, I think a lot of people would contest certain things about Bethel Woods and that there's a fence around the Woodstock site, but better that than like a Walmart or a strip mall or, you know, how things, we know how things go with open pieces of land.
It could very easily be a Costco, you know.
It could. With a sign that says original site of Woodstock, you know, a parking lot.
Welcome
with a bunch
to
of
Costco,
hippies.
man.
There'd be like hippie reunions on in a parking lot, right? No, it's not that. In fact, it's the rolling green hill, and people can go there and wow, what energy is there? I don't know what it is about that. It's got to be some sort of you know, this kind of magnetism, this lunar something in the earth, the core of the earth, that's just generating and pulsating. I'm really not a big fan of the Ang Lee film Taking Woodstock. I interviewed Elliot Tiber, and he was a great interview. I don't know how much of it was true, but I like
Artie Kornfeld told me every single thing in that movie was bullshit.
Okay, well, I'm glad you said it. But the one thing that I liked, that the Hollywood part that I liked, is when Elliot, the character that played Elliot, comes out of the van and he's tripping, and the hill is rolling like this. I'm like, wow, that is a cool visual, man. I mean, that's how you imagine Woodstock to be, you know, just at night. Woodstock at night fascinates me as much as it does during the day, because, you know, if anybody's gone camping or been in a rural area, and it gets really dark, you know, we live in the cities, you know, and just the fact that there were no lights and just encampments of fires all around, spotted throughout the hillside, really, it's enchanting to me. You know, I love that, with the echo of the sound in the background and that cool, you know, air, you know, the cool night air and the mountain air.
Except for the Christmas lights that Professor Langhart put up so we could find our way back to the car.
Hanley still has some of those.
Really?
Yes, he does. Yeah, the museum has a few artifacts that I helped facilitate to get up there. They didn't want the Christmas lights. They just kind of look like any general thing. But the fact is true, right? Where there are lights, well, there were some Christmas lights, but and on the guy wires of the scaffolding towers. Did you guys feel as though there were things, because we talked a little bit about the extent of research that's involved in writing any book, hopefully, but with particular to Woodstock, that you didn't want to be looked at as cheap, or you wanted to take a new twist on it? Did you feel as though there was something in the story that you couldn't accurately tell, that you tried your best at telling? I mean, a lot of the myth and lore is out there, and the facts are out there, but was there something that you tried to really solve? Any puzzles or anything in your book?
The brown acid was something I wanted to solve, and failure. I failed to solve that. No, you know, I mean, I heard a lot of contradictory stuff from a lot of people, because it's been a long time, and, you know, people remember things differently. People on 10 hits of acid especially remember things differently.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a lot of stuff where one person would say this happened at this time, and someone else would be like, no, that's impossible, this happened at this time. So I would just put both things in, and I just said in the foreword, in the introduction, like, this is what they told me. But no, I mean, really the main point that was shattered was there was no brown acid point. But I really felt like what I was doing, though, it was really more about preserving audience memories and that sort of, you know, people know they know what the show was like. They know the music. They have the soundtrack. They know all that already.
Yeah.
But I felt like there were all these people who had been there, who are very eager to say how it was for them, because it's this great experience in their lives, and people would just shut them down and not really want. It's like, oh, there goes Grandpa talking about Woodstock again. And I felt like, no, this is an important thing that happened, and and the fact that it went down as peacefully as it did and all that sort of thing, that matters. Yeah. And you would talk to these people and they would sort of like revert to being 18 again. And they would kind of undergo this sort of transformation. I could just see how important it was to them.
Yeah.
And how much it meant to them. And I didn't want to, yes, I can be very curmudgeonly, and yes, there were facts that I presented that do not appear in every Woodstock book, but for the most part, I didn't want to shit on these people's memories, and I didn't want to shit on the experience that they had.
It's funny, Dan. I don't see the curmudgeon at all.
Yeah, it's hard to find. You got to really sift around for it with special glasses on.
You weren't sitting next to him for 8 hours.
Yeah. No,
I get it.
When I wrote the entry on Mountain, for example, and all the entries about the bands, I sort of did a little biography, like little 2-page condensed take on each of them. And as I was researching it, I found out that, Felix Pappalardi died because his wife killed him.
Right.
And that many years later, when she died, she left it in her will that she wanted her cats euthanized and cremated so they could be buried with her. Had nothing to do with Woodstock, barely had anything to do with Mountain. And I was like, that's going in the book. I have to have that in there, So, then the guy I talked to from Sha Na Na had some really funny stories that I know didn't appear anywhere. There are people who I think don't even know that Sha Na Na played there. I tried to, shed a little light on things that maybe didn't get as much attention as some other things.
Cool. Yeah, one of the things I tried to debunk in my, or try to solve, one of the problems I tried to solve was who found the Woodstock site first. Because of what I had observed in interviewing all these folks is that everybody has a different take on it,
yeah.
Especially Bill Hanley. I mean, and he can listen. He can feel it, and anybody can say what they want and feel it. Right. And if it makes them feel good, then cool. It's not a crime. And it was 50 years ago. But, there are several books out there. I should probably pull some of those up since I have them. Bear with me a moment.
Well, during this break in the action, yeah. I can say that the one thing that I got so upset about because I couldn't get the right information was the length of Richie Havens' set. Now, I've heard Richie Havens say, you say 2 hours. Richie Havens himself said 3 hours.
Yeah.
The guy at the museum, I finally had to go with him, it was 45 minutes.
Oh.
John Morris told me 4 hours or maybe 5 hours.
That's what I heard.
That's the one thing, right? And memory is.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what I'm saying is like it's.
Yeah.
And does it matter really who's right? At this point,
it doesn't. But you want to try as a historian, especially someone that wasn't there. You want to try to figure it out. I mean, I know that's why I really was trying to dig hard. But there's so many books on Woodstock. I mean, some of my favorites are Woodstock, An Oral History by Joel Makehour. You guys have that one, I'm sure.
Nope.
Really?
Really?
This is next to Barefoot in Babylon, which is a bit flowery, a bit exaggerated in areas. This is probably the best oral history book. It's just pure interviews. You guys don't have this one?
I only read Judge Judy books.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm already finished with those. Here's Spitz, Barefoot in Babylon.
Yeah.
And this one is good. The one really good thing about it is that it was probably the earliest definitive book written about Woodstock. So the content is fresh. The memories are still fresh in here. However, there's conversations between Stan Goldstein and Bill Hanley that, the premise is true. The fact that Goldstein was trying to dig up information on why Hanley would have been the best for the job, and kind of putting him through some sort of little questionnaire, trying to find out information. But the conversation that is illustrated in the book is, you had to have been there with a recorder or
Right.
whatever, and I don't know how Spitz kind of did that, but it's there, and it's a good book. It's a legendary book. I mean, I'm going down the line of what I think the best books were for my research was, and Road to Woodstock I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
That's one of the ones that's in my bibliography, as is the Pete Fornatale book.
Oh, the Pete Fornatale book. Yeah, I have that one. This, I love Young Men with Limited Capital, with Unlimited Capital.
Yeah.
Just because it's just not a hippy dippy. It's straight up. It's all about the financing and the problems with it, and I like that. There's just good information in here.
When I was reading that, my whole response is like, okay, here's what really happened.
Yeah.
So,
right.
This book was very helpful to me, and a lot of people probably don't have it. Is Woodstock Festival Remembered. This came out in like 1978 or 79, and this is Lang's first attempt at a comprehensive book on Woodstock. And this is great because this had a lot of specific dates. We left after Wallkill on July 3rd, and that was really helpful for me because I was able to kind of put a chronological timeline on Hanley's evolution and development towards building the system and getting there and all that. So those to me are some of the best texts on Woodstock. And that's, when people, all these different sources tell me they found the site, what is a writer to do? What is a historian to do? So what I did was I, just like you, Dan, I said, well, it's up to you to figure out and judge who found the site first. Mel Lawrence tells one story. I interviewed Mel a while ago, and Tisha Agri tells another story. Michael Lang tells another story. So I went with Agri's story because it had never been told, and it sounded great. She said, we were driving along and we saw Happy Avenue, and we just left Wallkill. She goes, Kill Happy. I'm going there. I'm like, that's sweet. Let's go for that one. And she's like, this is how it went. This is exactly, I'm going to put it in print. She goes, do it. It's what it. So we have the panel yesterday, and I say, all right, who found the site? And I do that just to bait the panel. And Lang goes at it, Agri goes at it, and boom. And I look at Michael, he looks at me through the Zoom, and you start to laugh. Like, there it is. It's like, you'll never be able to figure it out. And that's the fun about it all, And what does it matter, but it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it too, is there isn't like one definitive account of this thing.
Yeah.
And, just with like the sheer number of people who were there just watching, that's not possible. But I know from like, in the past trying to pull very small events together and that sort of thing, it's like, it really is a deeply, deeply divisive thing where like little factions will turn up between people and that sort of thing. And I was surprised actually. I'm not going to name any names, but last year I was very surprised at the extent to which there's still this feeling of territoriality over the event and the site and between certain people who are, it doesn't belong to anybody. I mean, yes, the land belongs to the museum at Bethel Woods, but a lot of the people who I talked to, like, I can't remember their names. They're on the cover of the album. Please.
Urkelines.
Thank you. Yeah. No, they were like, this doesn't belong to anyone. It doesn't belong to us. This belongs to everybody. This belongs to the world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's preserved. It's there.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the further away you get from an event, history just gets a little fuzzier, and so I think we have to accept that like the history of Woodstock is always going to be this kind of imperfect thing, and probably that Mike, that 38 disc box set that you were talking about of the entire thing is probably the closest thing we're ever going to have to
like an
absolute. No, I didn't have $800.
The 10 CD one, but it's amazing because they left the microphones on.
Yeah,
all 4 days.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you agree that that's probably the closest thing we're ever going to get to like this is really what?
Not if they release the film, because there's a lot of footage left in the Warner vaults. And if you go back and look at some of the documentaries. If you kind of, because I also use documentaries as my source
Right.
of information, and you know, the Wadley film has left an imprint. You know, I always say this: how did you pick the people for your book, or how do you know the people in your book were actually at Woodstock? And if they started to recite the movie word verbatim, they're out the door. And who am I? I'm a Gen Xer, right? We're a couple of Gen Xers who will write a book about Woodstock, or even say that someone, if they were there in their head, right on. But I really wanted to get the most factual data, you know. But where were we at? What were we just?
But I even have a hard time myself.
Yeah.
Trying to remember and
right.
Is this memory from my weekend, or do I remember this from the movie? Because the movie also had a profound effect upon me.
Yes.
When I went to see the movie, because I was very stoned again,
Yeah.
but I was like, for however long it took.
Yeah.
And then I got out of the movie and I talked to everybody about that, just like I talked to everybody about the concert. So now when I think of Woodstock, I sometimes think I substitute maybe in my thoughts what was in the movie, what was in the book.
I had some interview sources who said that same thing. They're like, yeah, I did this. Wait, did I do that, or was that in the movie?
Right.
You know, so I mean, again, it's like, you know, memory is not always the most reliable.
I would throw away, and I interviewed 40 people. I had to throw away a couple of interviews because it was too close to the movie for me. And
really?
I wanted just the in-between weird stuff. You know, I wanted to hear that, you know, like someone opening up their trench coat, they were naked and just had a big block of hash right on their, you know, ripping hash. Yes, you know, that's the beauty, you know. But going back to the definitive releases of Woodstock, yes, Andy Zachs, who's a great guy. I met him last summer. I contributed some stuff for resources to his research early last year before it came out, and I opened my door, ding dong, FedEx. He sent me the box. I have the box. It's incredible. I mean, I don't even want to open it, man. You know, it's like, and the guy's a genius. And that, and if you go back to Woodstock Diaries by Pennebaker in 95, 96, there's a whole, this interview's in there that you probably never even seen. Flash forward to last year, Mick Richards, independent filmmaker, he releases Producing Woodstock, and all of his, it looks dated, but it just came out. And the reason why it looks dated is because he was conducting interviews 25 years ago. So everybody in the film is still really young. Stan Goldstein, Mel Lawrence, you know, Lee Mackler Bloomer, all the Fillmore people are in it. And then he even goes to the El Monaco Hotel when it's in ruins and films some of that. It's a beautiful document of research put into a film, and it's on Amazon Prime right now. So Mick Richards, Producing Woodstock, it's worth the watch. And for you guys, I think you really love it because it's just new footage, just really great stuff.
Writing this down.
Memory. Yeah. I didn't even realize that, you know, 20 years after Woodstock, 30 years after Woodstock, I thought to myself, and on the precipice of writing this book, did I really go swimming? I had to Google pictures of people going swimming. Was that just something that a memory that I've come to believe? But no, I really went swimming.
We have a question. Someone asks, how long did it take to do the final cleanup and dismantling of the stage and towers? There must have been garbage strewn for miles. Also, did Max own the land where Filippini's pond was located? Do you guys know the answer to that?
The number that I got from Chris Langhart on how long it took to clean up,
like a month, right?
Something like that. And he had to pay for it out of his own pocket, and they were not able to finish because it was just like, I mean, you've seen what it looked like.
Yeah.
John Morris compared it to like photos of the Civil War after a battle. Right. And like he was worried walking around that he was going to like find bodies. He didn't, thankfully.
Yeah.
The fact that they weren't able to, Wavy Gravy told me that like he wanted, you know, they had to leave and go do something else, but he wanted more than anything to be on the the cleanup end, because
Yeah.
they really wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't possible.
Well, I interviewed some folks who did some of the cleanup, and they said they were never paid. They stuck around, and then Woodstock people that work for Woodstock Ventures would come around and ask them to, well, hey, want to work and make some money. And did Max own the land? I don't think so. I think they had to ask. Filippini's Pond is named after Mr. Filippini, and I would actually put money down on this. I'm not a gambling man. That they had to ask Filippini if it was okay that they used his pond. I'm fairly certain. I don't think Max owned that. But the cleanup, one guy tells me bulldozers. Bulldozers and piles. Separation of materials, and then they do a archaeological dig with the University of Binghamton, I think, last year or the year before, at the museum, and they go like 7 or 8 feet down a little square patch, and the most that they found in consistency was the pull tabs. You remember the Schlitz and Schaefer and Whack. They'd make curtains out of them in the 70s. If you were a real alcoholic, you'd have a nice curtain, or if you like to drink that much,
Just a big Dr. Pepper fan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I shouldn't say
alcoholic.
that. Yeah, you don't have to be alcoholic.
Not necessary.
No, you just really love to drink.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Any more questions? Imagine if we had today's technology at Woodstock. Yeah, that would be. You'd have a bunch of people. A lot of iPhones would have got wet.
We would have photos, though. That's
photos.
We were very lucky to have one of our sources was this one young woman who was 14 at the time when she went, and she just had the presence of mind to bring a camera. Yeah. So we were able to have some photos in our book that aren't anywhere else, solely because she had thought to. Now it's everyone's holding their. I went to see Queen a couple of years ago, and just the whole place was just nothing but phones being held up.
Yeah, it's a drag.
I think that would have sort of ruined the get back to nature kind of experience that they were looking for, and you would have also had all these.
It would have been a lot easier with bottled water and cell phones. You got to admit.
At the same time, though, you would have had all these people after 5 hours on the first day going, "Where's a charger? I have to plug in." So that would have been an issue.
Your story, Dan, about John Mars thinking he was going to find bodies and so forth is one of my favorite stories. It's probably in your books too, but the guy was sleeping underneath the stage during Hendrix's set, right? And he woke up, I think the Star Spangled Banner woke him up, and he realized at the end, it's over. It's finally over.
Yes.
Come out the other side. And that's when he stuck his head out and he went walking and coming up with looking at the garbage, looking at the land, like how he described it. Yeah. After a battle of the Civil War, expecting a body.
It was a disaster, like no question. That's not hyperbole to call it a disaster.
Well, I mean, Lang leaving the site in the Wadley film, hovering over the site in the helicopter, and there's a peace sign made out of garbage. He says that's the last thing he remembers seeing of Woodstock is that image on the field there, which is incredible.
And the fact that it could have been such a disaster. How true is it that those wires that were buried underneath the ground that John Mars freaked out at, that could be the biggest mass electrocution in history?
Yes.
He was going to kill himself if that happened, but it wasn't. Professor Langhart said that they were they were true. They had electrical current, but they weren't the main wires. But didn't that also add to the silence? Didn't that also, besides the monsoon, wasn't that 4 hours, 3 hours, also because they switched electricity from that part of the field where the topsoil eroded?
Joel Rosenman told me that took half an hour. But again, everything we say, I feel like there needs to be a little asterisk next to it. Like, that's what I was told.
So it added a half an hour.
That's what he said. I mean, what he said was it took about half an hour, and he was like horrified that there was going to be, like you were saying, just this time with no music going on. Nothing. And he had no idea what that was going to degenerate into, because I mean, for good reason. Like with the festival that we will not name, that you mentioned, not having music between the music is, I didn't even know that that's what happened, but that makes a lot of sense that things turned out the way they did. You have to always, I think people have to have a sense that like this is going on, and we're not just like stuck in neutral with no end in sight. I think once people feel that way is when it starts to get a little like dicey.
Right before Country Joe and the Fish came on, because they were the first ones back after the rainstorm. Those hours were interminably long.
Yeah.
They were interminably stressful. It wasn't fun anymore.
Right.
I can say that because at least with the Last Seat in the House, my Hanley book, that some of the first instances of music being played during these intermittent lulls in set changes, let's say what we would equate them to today, were born at Woodstock. Sam Baroda was Hanley's lead sound engineer, and Hanley shows up with his crew of 12, between 12 and 14, and Sam is the lead engineer, and Sam is left to do a lot of the facilitation and setting up of things. But one of the things Sam told me was like, in the Bob Spitz book, this romantic, Hanley sets up the sound, rolls in with his trucks, and when you hear, Steppenwolf cranking in the background, echoing the recorded music, right? But Sam tells me, he goes, no. He goes, I brought my dual cassette deck or whatever, and I put in blood, sweat, and tears. He said that's how he would test the system, is with recorded music. And by way of that, he's contributing to the calming of the ocean of people and entertaining them in another way. Relating to Bill Belmont, Country Joe's manager, who this Crosby, Stills, Nash were afraid to show up. They were actually afraid. Bill Belmont gets he's working for Woodstock Ventures, also Country Joe's manager at the time, and Crosby or Stills calls him up and says, we're afraid. And then he says, I put the phone out. He's like, they're playing your song, Sweet Judy Blue Eyes. Hanley's playing your song, and that was Sam Baroda playing it through the cassette deck, as a recorded kind of, it's out there. So everybody knows you, they're waiting for you. Come on, So just little kind of nuances, little factual.
That was their second show, right?
That's what they say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Their second show.
That would be quite something if all those people knew their music already, and they were already like superstars,
right?
Before the second show. That would be, and
everybody knew who Crosby was and Stills were individually, but that super group, no.
Yeah. You can put a lot of very talented people together, and you don't know what's going to come out the other end.
Yeah. Crosby's book, he says how they were all watching him. They wanted to see what this band was about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every single other act was standing there watching him.
Yeah.
That had to be, they're all like, you better be good.
Yeah. Well,
and Nash claims that it wasn't no big deal for him.
Yeah.
Nash claims that he had girls ripping off his shirt, ripping off his pants at the Hollies. He says, look at me. Do I look like I'm stressful on that stage? He's just having a good old time, according to him.
There are some people who are wired to just get up there live in front of thousands of people and start singing, and it's nothing to them. They have no problem with that. Then there are other people who just can't. Like this what we're doing now would be too much for them.
Yeah.
It all depends on, how you're naturally predisposed to be. Some people are just born performers. Everything I've ever heard about Nash, especially from Neil Young, talking about him, is just like he's this very show up for work.
Yeah.
This is happening, high quality, total dedication to a type of a person. So I can see how wanting to present a good show and wanting the people out there to feel like they got their money's worth. I can see how that's a priority to him, and that matters.
No doubt about it. As a matter of fact, my favorite story in the book was told to me by Nash. By the way, that's this book, Woodstock, Back to Yasgurs Farm, sold at Amazon, and all other great outlets. The story of him coming back to that hotel with the boys, and Joni Mitchell's waiting for him. They were going out at the time, and there was a grand piano in the hotel, and she so desperately wanted to be there.
Yeah.
But her manager, Elliot Roberts, wouldn't let her because of the Dick Cavett show the next morning. And she's starting to doodle this little song, and she plays it for him. And it's dark, and it's minor key, but they're transfixed.
Yeah.
And still says, Joni, can we have that song? And Joni loved all three of them. And she goes, yeah, sure. And then he goes, could we change it around a little bit? And of course, it came into that celebratory way that they do it with Neil Young's lead guitar and Stephen Still's lead guitar and what we all know and love. But Nash was very nice and very accommodating. Of course, that could be business too, you know?
That's okay.
No, these boys, it's funny, these rock stars don't really like you. It's like far and few between when you talk to these guys. They want publicity, and it's nothing against them, but that's their part of the game.
Well, so don't we? You know, we're all feeding off each other. You know, we're all feeding off each other.
True.
And you know what? I mean, if I was in their shoes, I would probably want to have the story told accurately and with integrity and from someone that has, the skills to do it, and, not speaking to everybody. You have to be selective, I think, too.
Right.
So Nash probably knew that you were a legitimate journalist and writer and said, all right, I'm going to give you my story. And that there's meaning in that, that's cool. I mean, with all of us, these people have handed us a piece of their history, to not exploit in some way,
Right.
So we have a responsibility, I think, in that vein.
But yeah, I agree with that. I really didn't want to seem or come off exploitative at all.
Yeah.
And I was very happy when I talked to Joel Rosenman,
who's very nice, by the way.
Mad respect for that guy. Absolutely mad respect for that guy.
Yep.
He told me that he felt like I was coming from a good place on this, and that I was a gentleman, all that sort of thing. And that mattered to me. It's been a long time, and he's done a lot of other things since then.
Yep.
He got I forget the guy's name, Victor Sue, I think, had mismanaged his money or something like that. So there was this whole thing in the New York Times 10 years ago that all got mixed in with his other articles that I found while I was researching. It's been a long time. He's had a long life and done a lot of things, but people keep coming back to him about this thing over and over again. And that was the same with all the musicians who played and everything.
Yeah.
And our job is to be able to approach them and let them know that we're in this for the right reasons. And we're not looking at this as just something to exploit and turn over for a buck. Yeah. We would like to make money on what we did, but that's not, we're not like, oh, Joel Rosenman, I'm gonna, it's not who we are,
I would have loved to interview John Roberts, though. I heard he was such a nice guy, and that would have been great.
Joel was very kind and gave me a very long spiel about him and John and their friendship and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So for my section on John, I just put what Joel said.
Yeah.
And that was the section on him. I felt like that was really the best thing I could do.
Yeah.
In his absence, but man, I would have some questions for him. That's for sure.
Oh,
but
totally.
Not possible.
So, since your books have come out and our books have come out, has anything changed for you? Are you known because the Woodstock niche? There's a specific section of the bookstore that has Woodstock books. I feel amazed that I have this little corner of real estate part of that. With other great authors of rock journalism, and has your life changed in any way? Is it just business as usual? Or writing a Woodstock book is a very specific thing.
I just find it incredibly sad that I had the greatest year of my life last year with this Woodstock publicity stuff. I was fucking rock star in 2019, and look where we are today.
I know. Weird, right? Yeah. I managed to put together 50 dates at libraries all across New England. I was on a whirlwind from for the whole year before the book even came out. I was giving presentations, and I would get looked up and down. You weren't at Woodstock, so I had to legitimize myself. What, trust me, I'm interested in this shit. I'm genuinely am interested. I was turned on to Woodstock at a very young age, and I remember a lot of hippies and all of that, the culture, and I think when I discovered, I say this in my Pilgrims of Woodstock presentation, that around the age of 19, I, like anybody, would go to a video store, and for someone who loved music, would rent their favorite, The Song Remains the Same, and, The Wall, and look for the different releases of, I have my box of bootlegs and all that. And, the Woodstock dual cassette was there. And I remember watching it, and then I was just like, whoa, this is unbelievable. Just the first time I watched the Wadley film, I was just blown away. And the fact that in 1989, Woodstock was just 20 years old. It was fresh. Mm-hmm. Two decades is not 5, and so those baby boomers are parents, and they're part of the workforce, and they're part of the scene still, and that made it exciting to me, is realizing that, wow, these stories are alive still, and these people are among us. And I remember when the internet came about in 97, or when I got the internet in 96 or 97, I was able to find a forum that was projecting a webcast from Yasgurs Farm. And it was so wild. It was choppy, and the bandwidth was, it was just terrible. Yeah. But you just heard weird noises, and it was in the dark and flashy lights. And my interest in Woodstock kept on going and going and going. And I don't know, here I am, with these, meeting Hanley and having these 2 books that are somewhat Woodstock related. And, you kind of will yourself to be. Things happen if you think about them a lot, I think.
I'm just so glad that I was able to talk to Joe Cocker before he died.
Oh, man. Is he he's in your book?
I'm particularly glad that I happened to ask him about Woodstock.
Very cool.
Boy, that would have been a real disappointment had I looked up that Joe Cocker interview and I didn't ask him about Woodstock. So sure, the quote from him is from my interview before he died. Duh. Amazing. And the same thing with Richie Havens.
Yes.
I found myself in the position of being his publicist in 1984. Wow. And I got the idea, why don't we go on New York City radio on the 15th anniversary of Woodstock, the artist, the fan, and we could both do the radio show.
Cool.
And we did it, and it was wonderful. And my mom called up the show and totally embarrassed me, but thank God for her that she taped it. And I found that tape from 1984 in a Radio Shack little tape, and I transcribed it, and the quotes from Richie Havens are from that interview.
Wow. I want to hear that. Did you digitize it?
I never did digitize it, but I will be more than happy to. You'll send it back, right?
Well, we'll digitize it. We'll figure it out. I'll get it digitized for you. There's got to be somebody.
He was wonderful. Yeah. I had a friend call up to ask a particular question that I wanted to talk about, but my mom, it's Dr. Judith Kuriansky, who had the show on Saturday mornings in New York City, is a clinical psychologist, and even she couldn't talk to my mom. Yeah. She starts talking about all kinds of crazy stuff. I had to go into work the next day and said, "Hey, nice call from your mom." I'm like, "Oh." But God bless her. I mean, she made me those sandwiches. And I end the book with her tears when I go home, and she clutches me to her bosom and cries and cries and cries. So
I asked Lang. Well, Lang was Cocker's manager, and I asked him. What did I ask? Well, I told him a story about when I interviewed Chip Monk, and Chip told me, he goes, "Well, you know why Joe Cocker looks so wet on stage, right?" I'm like, "Well, he was a sweaty dude, right?" And I was like, "No. Because someone tore a hole in the canopy tent and water fell on him, But Cocker's, I got to say, I think there's a lot of wonderful performances, incredible performances over the weekend. But the one that touches me the most is probably Joe Cocker's. I just love the Joe Cocker. It's so raw it's so primal. You know, I just love it so much.
Well, because he didn't stop the song. With a little help from my friends, he refused to stop the song until every single one of us stood up and gave him a standing ovation.
I love it.
And maybe because I was tripping, but it seems as if the song went on for hours.
Oh my God.
And he just kept doing it until we stood up.
Oh, it's so good. And Lang says, after the rainstorm, Joe Cocker turns to him and goes, "Did I do that?" Which I think is really hilarious. I met Richie a couple times. I went up to the site for the Day in the Garden show, which was in '97 or something like that, and that was on the field before the museum. And Richie played, Arlo played, Rick Danko played. It was a great little concert they had right on the site. And I remember I dug up. I never thought I'd be back there in my youth there, so I took a jar I had with me and I scooped up Woodstock dirt and I sealed it up, and I still have the jar somewhere, you know. But who would ever know it was Woodstock dirt? But yeah, Richie was cool. And then I was unemployed for a while in my late 20s, and I was an autograph hound. I think I might have mentioned to Dan a few times. So I had my one Woodstock album, and I just chased down everybody that I could. And,
cool.
Joe Cocker was playing Hampton Beach. I saw him play. I'm so grateful I was able to see him perform up in New Hampshire here years ago. And said, "Joe, will you sign my album?" And he turned around and signed the album. What a legend. Yeah, it's just a great dude. Yeah.
No, that's great. There were some people who I talked to who performed, who were like, Woodstock changed the entire trajectory of my career. I would not be famous today without it.
Yeah.
That was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then there were people who would not return my calls.
Oh yeah.
And Joel Rosenman, on their behalf, he was like, some of these artists kind of resent performing there a little bit because they saw it as like, this will be the stepping stone to something else. Yes. Or I have this whole 50-year career you can ask me about, and instead you're asking me about this one thing I did for half an hour when I was 21. Maybe ask me about something I did last year, you know. I get it, you know, but this is the sort of thing where when you're at a historical event, arguably one of the most significant cultural events of the 20th century.
Yes.
You're gonna get questions about it. You know, that's just how it is. But I could see after 30 years of it, maybe being like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've had enough.
Enough.
Yeah.
Well, the bands that were supposed to get famous from Woodstock didn't. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be Santana. It was supposed to be Sweetwater.
Right.
And Bert Summer. Bert Summer was supposed to get famous there too.
Yeah. Right.
True.
Respect, poor Bert Summer.
In the fashion of Monterey. I asked this question of Lang yesterday, and I think I probably should have been more clear about what I was asking, but I said, you know, you were at Monterey. We saw what Monterey did for the performers that played there. It was a launching pad. Was Woodstock a launching pad for any performers in your mind? He goes, well, Santana. I'm like, and then I let it go, and of course Santana, but there were a lot more bands on that roster than Santana that, like you say, Mike, should have been famous because of Woodstock. Yes, you know, their performance was famous, but for what reason? You know,
right.
You know, the Grateful Dead's performance is famous, but it's famous for something else, right?
It's bad famous.
Bad fame.
Yeah.
Good name for a band.
We were yelling at the stage, "You suck! Get off the stage!"
Oh, you were there you were there to see them.
Horrible. They did Bobby Blue Bland's "Turn On Your Love Light" for like 45 minutes, but it was 45 minutes of doodling. Just introspective.
Well, they were
doodling.
getting electrocuted. Poor guys.
But they had horrible. Right, I understand that, and that's true. But how about another one? How about the Incredible String Band?
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
I like a couple of Incredible String Band records. Absolutely the wrong band to put on when they were put on. You could not have put them on at a worse time. And if anything, if anyone benefited from that at all, it was Canned Heat. Because people were so happy String Band were off.
We'll follow them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
You know, what about Jeff Beck? He gets no credit at all.
Rod Stewart had to go solo during the tour, or they would have played.
Yeah. No, what I like is all the stories of people who were invited and didn't show up. or people like Joni Mitchell, who everyone is convinced gave this career-making performance there, and she was nowhere near it. But there are a lot of people. I was getting asked this a lot by different people, like, how was Joni Mitchell's set? Did she play well there? It's like she didn't play there at all, but she wrote the song, and she's associated with these musicians, and she's just been sort of like grandfathered in by the culture. If it wasn't
for Dick Cavett, there'd be no Woodstock song.
Yeah. I have a page in the back of the book called Invited to the Dance, But.
Yeah.
And it lists 25, superstar styled artists. Simon and Garfunkel, they hated each other too much. Iron Butterfly, stuck at the hotel and had a fight with John Morris, one after another.
The Iron Butterfly story is hilarious.
It's hilarious. I love
it. He wrote "Fuck You" with the first letter of the telegram. If you read it down, with the help of Western Union, or the Tommy James and the Shondell story of him being on a beautiful island in Hawaii, and he gets a call from his agent saying there's some pig farmer in upstate New York wants you to play a festival. He's in paradise. Yeah. So he laughed at his agent and got off the phone.
A lot of the agents and people like that did not sell it well to a lot of the artists, because
it's hard to understand. How do you even understand what Woodstock is going to be, right? When you get
the Doors turned it down, and it was either Densmore or Krieger said that they turned it down because it was just going to be another Monterey Pop, and that happened already, and who cares?
Also, Morrison was afraid of getting assassinated.
That's what Lang told. Yeah, Lang told me that Morrison was afraid he was going to get shot on stage. Okay,
paranoia.
That's okay.
The establishment,
who might argue?
The establishment was watching him,
Yeah. Chicago, I heard, got invited, but Lang said that's bullshit. There were a lot of people I heard got invited, and he was very kind. I was on the phone with him, and he was like, "Just go down your list." And I was like, "Okay." And I would just name artists, and he'd be like, "No, I never invited them." Yeah, he was an asshole, so he didn't come. So that straightened it right out pretty quickly. But my God, the Iron Butterfly story that's one for the ages. That's timeless.
They demanded to get on stage the second they got there, be carted out the second they finished.
Yeah.
And they had one song, and it got it defeated. That's it.
17 minutes. Yeah, everyone sadly didn't get to
staple. It was always played along with this thing by Serpent Power called the Endless Tunnel, which was also a very Doorsian kind of thing that went on for 10 or 12 minutes.
When In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida came on the radio, it must have inspired terror in you. Like, please just be the single version. Please just be the single version. Please just be the single version. And then don't make me sit through the 17-minute drum solo. Please, God.
That's funny.
Most of the time, hopefully you got lucky, unless you were listening to the underground FM stations who are like, no, we're doing the whole album side, all of it.
A bathroom song.
Yeah.
For the radio.
The other people besides Bill Dylan, of course, the Byrds, the Doors, Donovan, Free, Jeff Beck Group, Johnny Cash, Laura Nyro, Joni Mitchell, Roy Rogers. Michael Lang wanted to have Roy Rogers end it, not Hendrix, and he said no. Simon and Garfunkel, Moody Blues, Lighthouse, Raven, Mind Garage, Zeppelin, Jethro Tull.
Well, let's give our books a plug before we look at some visuals here. You want to go, Dan?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so people know. This is Zoomstock, Author's Den. All three of us met in Woodstock for the 50th last year at the Writer's Den, right?
Yeah.
So, Dan, your book?
This is Woodstock, 50 Years of Peace and Music by yours truly, and I'm trying to position it so it doesn't get light from my computer, which is
looks good.
What we're reduced to in the Zoom age.
Yes, Mike Greenblatt.
Woodstock Back to Yasgurs Farm has all the stats in a nice section in the middle. Everyone that played, what time they went on, what time they went off, what the names of the songs, what the personnel, and also my favorite albums from each of these. So that's a fun thing, and the photography is beautiful, and it's on sale wherever good books are sold.
Good. And this is my book, Pilgrims of Woodstock. Came out last year, 2019. Richard F. Bellack, photojournalist from Brooklyn, New York, sadly no longer with us. 30 oral history interviews, which give voice to some beautiful, never-before-seen stills. And here, the last seat in the house, which is funny because this is the one I worked on most, has 7 or 8 pretty detailed chapters on how Woodstock's sound was deployed and where it came from. And this book is a biography of Bill Hanley, the sound engineer of Woodstock. And of course, Hanley did a lot of other festivals. I have some things I wanted to show. So Woodstock, Dan and I are the host of Two Guys Talking Rush because we love the band Rush, it has nothing to do with Woodstock at all, other than they came about 4 years after the festival.
Right now, Mike is just like, "Oh Jesus, not this shit again."
Well, we could.
You gotta like Rush. You guys are a lot younger than me. I'm looking at 70. Why am I gonna like Rush?
Okay.
Woodstock, the jigsaw puzzle. So Woodstock. Woodstock
wow.
In the popular culture, right? So how does Woodstock sell itself? There were programs that never got distributed at the site. And Woodstock was intended to be a venture, a money-making thing, but did not happen, from tickets to all the way down the line. T-shirts, questionable, but there were T-shirts and jackets allocated for staff. But this, after the movie comes out, all sorts of cool stuff start to arrive. I'm just pulling out some artifacts here, guys. Bear with me a moment. Just because I have them and I never get to show them to anybody, I just got to look at them myself. So some very early cassettes that have the case that opens up like this of the Woodstock, the Woods. They back in the early days they were really bright colored, or they came in these cases, and these are kind of, the labels are coming off. But I love cassette. I love listening to cassettes. The quality isn't so great, but it just brings me back. And Woodstock 2. The Woodstock 2 album with the little baby on the cover. That album's pretty cool. And then I'll have to get you, there's Mac Hauer's book on tape, which is really rare, or Woodstock, the Oral History. I'll get you guys, I have this digitized if you guys, I'll send it to you. A pin, which was sold at the festival.
Oh, nice.
Woodstock pin. It's all rusty in the back. A Woodstock reel, audio reel.
Oh wow!
Yeah, these are cool. I'm not going to open it up, but I just love the box. I'll never play this thing with the boxes. So just like the selling of Woodstock, right? The stuff that came out when the film, when they lose money. I mean, sadly, there's a sad story to this. So much money could have been made for the producers of Woodstock. Thereafter, I mean, what are some of the things that you heard about the selling of the film, or the rights being sold to the Woodstock?
I just know that it took them 11 years to break even.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for the movie,
correct.
Yeah, would not have happened.
Art Vasmer, the store owner, Vasmer's store.
Oh my God.
A ruler.
Oh my God!
Isn't that crazy? This came right out of the store.
Oh my! That is hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's just random. Yeah. I mean, I found this on eBay.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to know what that is, unless you really know.
There's this little subculture of extremely, extremely dedicated people.
Yeah.
There's probably one guy out there who would spend his kid's college tuition to get that carpenter's rule.
Yes.
They're out there.
Exactly.
They exist.
A leather bag that was worn at Woodstock.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The woman showed me.
Where'd you get that?
Well, this woman I met, she goes, I was at Woodstock. She showed me pictures, and then she's like, I brought this bag, and I was like, you want to sell it? She's like, yeah. She sold it to me, so it's in good hands. I told her I was a Woodstock kind of nut job. Hold on. An original Woodstock poster.
Oh wow!
This is from Noel Monk's collection. Noel Monk became Van Halen's tour manager later on, but he worked at the Fillmore East, and he was also at Woodstock. And this came out of his dad's store nearby, upstate New York. He actually was from upstate New York, and his dad had this hanging at his store. So acquired this from his estate. And it's not in the greatest condition, but they're really hard to find and they're very expensive. This is like a show and tell here.
That says a lot, though, I think, about like why Woodstock is still relevant and why we're still talking about it. Because, it's this event that fragmented into thousands of different directions to the point where Van Halen's manager would give a shit. When you can't really think of, here's Woodstock, here's Van Halen, two very different things, but not really,
But the music,
very easy to see Eddie Van Halen sitting there watching Jimi Hendrix playing the Star Spangled Banner and being like, I want to do that. I want a part of that.
Well, not only that, but, in terms of Noel Monk, it's funny that there were two people that worked with Phil Maurice,
Yes.
the last name Monk, is that Noel Monk's at the Phil Maurice, and of course Bill Graham is a pioneer in theater rock and roll exhibition, right? With all these, this whole platform for artists to perform, and lights and sound and everything, seating and tickets and all that. And then of course Noel, the whole Phil Maurice crew jumps over to Woodstock, and that the Woodstock event establishes itself as something, another trailblazing event in the systemization, or what to learn from not being systemized, what you should do right at a festival. I mean, there are a number of people that tell me we learned from Woodstock's mistakes, and that made the industry better, so that's interesting. But here's an attendee sent this to me. It's from the Times Herald. This came out on the Saturday, the 16th, 400,000 flood site. And I just got a couple more things here. I just get to show this stuff off because I think maybe a couple people might care about it out there. This is another two rare. So Michael Lang, I asked him, all right, Michael Lang, what inspired you to put Woodstock on? Was it the Sound Outs in upstate New York? They were the Sound Outs, or was it Miami Pop? The festival in Miami at Gulfstream Park, or was it Monterey? And he said, well, it was Monterey Pop, right? But I pulled these out yesterday. So these came out in 1970, but this is the Sound Out. These are flyers from the Sound Out events up in upstate New York. These are pretty rare. I mean, it's hard to find shit like this. This is after Woodstock. But the Sound Out festivals were these small little festivals, these bucolic settings that Michael Lang saw in the mid to late 60s, and was inspired to put on Woodstock. Did he tell you that, or what did he tell you?
Yeah, he said it was that, and I mean, there were a lot of what he told me about it was kind of political.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he said like that was kind of his original inspiration was, let's take people, especially urban people, get them away from all the hassles of urban life, put them in nature and give them music. And maybe, I think he felt like by doing that, like maybe there was some possibility of like improving. He was at that point, like, at least the way he explained it to me was he really felt like the whole, like the 60s was ending, not just chronologically, but what it meant spiritually and culturally and that sort of thing. And that this was almost like for him more of an attempt to try to get that back than to try and capitalize on it or something like that. I mean, you had 1968 was a horrible year by any measure. You had the Martin Luther King assassination. You had Robert Kennedy getting assassinated. Just horrible shit.
The Democratic Convention.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, I remember specifically him saying to me, we felt like we were losing this dream. And, this is something that he was hoping would have some kind of like an after effect of helping to sort of bring that back. But, I mean, you look at it now and you see that cultural forces are what they are, and history is what it is and just does what it's supposed to do. What I think is amazing is that Woodstock took place right next to the moon landing, the Charles Manson murders, all this stuff, and it still managed to, become more of a headline than those things.
Yep.
So, and that's
I mean,
really saying
and then
something.
you have the, I interviewed Alex Cooley, who's a major promoter in the South, and Southern promoter, and he put on the Atlanta Pop Festival, the first international pop festival of Atlanta, Byron, Georgia, and he was pissed because that happened the 4th of July before Woodstock, and he was pissed about Woodstock getting all the credit because they had about 200,000 at his festival, and it was a great lineup, and Jimi Hendrix performed the Star Spangled Banner there as well. So really weird.
I have a recording of that. He played his ass off.
He did.
That set
is excellent.
100 times better than the Woodstock set. No, I love the Woodstock set, but it's a little ragged, to say the least. I mean, I still listen to it to this day and still get a lot out of it, but I mean, man, he has way better recordings than that one.
Yeah,
it's good for us that there was always someone recording when he played.
This is true.
Right. Yeah,
that might have been Hanley to credit for that. But one last thing before we look at some footage is Max Yasgur milk bottle.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, well, I had 2 of them. This is a 50
It's
54. 50. Yeah, 54. A 57, and the 69 is the most collectible. I had a 69. I sold it for $3,000. I paid $400 for it. I got a nice flip on. I just could not refuse the Do Re Mi on that one. I don't. It doesn't matter to me either way. It's just Max Yasgur's. I needed the cash, but the Yasgur milk bottle is a nice little collectible. Anything.
That's what I said. Though is there's those people out there. They're out there, and it's like $800,000. For a fork, I'm all over it.
Yeah.
I'd be stupid not to.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I feel like if I surround myself by enough things that I can absorb the energy of it in some way. I don't know what'll happen with all this, but it's just fun anyway. So let's take a look at some footage. Is that cool with you guys?
Yes.
And then all right. How are you guys doing on time?
I have to hop off at 9.
Okay. All right. Good to know. And here we go.
Should Mike and I be talking to entertain our public? And
it'll just come on right now, and we can talk throughout as we watch it, and we could just give comments like they do in the CD and the DVDs, the film.
Oh, director's commentary.
Yeah,
awesome.
We could do that. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Did you guys ever get to interview Wadley?
No.
Oh. No.
Whoa.
Would have loved to.
What a
He's
trip.
the recipient of a Pete Townsend Act of Violence also. At Woodstock.
Really?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
From what I understand, he looked very young at the time. And Pete Townsend thought he was just some kid, and he kicked him off the stage almost.
Well, he's probably up there filming. They're in the photographer's pit filming and all that.
Right. But he had history of doing that.
Yeah.
He was an angry guy.
He's what?
An angry guy.
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed him through Skype, and I was completely honest. I'm conducting this research on Hanley, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it." And I got to interview him through Skype, and then I needed to.
Wadley, you're talking about.
Wadley, yes.
Okay. Right.
And what had happened? He was in like South Wales and on some farm, like far away. I mean, the signal was distant and it was intermittent and choppy. But I talked to him for about almost 2 hours, and a good hour of it wasn't about Woodstock, but a solid hour of it was. And I needed to use his interview for the dissertation because that's when I was conducting a lot of my research, and. I said, well, I need you to sign a consent form because with the IRB and this, they need to know that you're, okay with this. He goes, do you think I ever had anybody ever fucking signed a consent form for Woodstock? I'm like, I'm not going to argue with you, man. Whatever. It's all good. You took me on a ride, it was fun. But Wadley's awesome. I mean, I did interview Dale Bell though. Dale's book is very good on the filming, the entire, how they engaged in the filming of Woodstock. That's a great book. I forget the name of it, but trying to give people props here for the research they've done. So here we go. Whoops. Can you all see that?
Oh yeah.
I see it.
All right, good. Hopefully Facebook doesn't have to turn down the music.
Yeah. God, you know what this reminds me of was last year when we were doing the Bethel Woods event. I was staying on the Yasgur Road property, glamping, which I've never done before in my life, and it was actually a lot like this.
Yeah,
it was like probably of all the things going on that weekend, it was very close, kind of in spirit and in the way it came together and everything. Or as close as you can get in 2019 to what that was like.
This is great footage.
Stayed there.
Yeah.
What's that?
You stayed there?
For 3 days, yeah.
For 3
Every
days.
time you saw me at the writer's den, I had just emerged from my tent and just, went off to hawk books.
That's interesting because I commuted. I only live 45 minutes from the area. So I commuted. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to start this, and maybe we should identify what maybe Mike, if you can see anything in here that you notice. But one thing to notice about this is that the party arrives on Wednesday, and the earlier in the week you got there, the better opportunity you had to find a site and find a parking spot. The later you got, or the closer you got to the opening day, it was nearly impossible to drive in.
But I didn't have to find a parking lot. I mean,
what day did you arrive? What day did you arrive?
Thursday.
Okay.
We were told where to park, and we just went where the guy told us.
Well, this is what Sheets is doing. They're in the Yasgur domain, and they're finding their camping spot, is what I'm saying. These guys are camping. So you'll see in this footage that they actually have a station wagon, and there's a few of them, and they're actually able to set up their little grill and eat and all that. And, I think by now we're probably into Thursday, because it's 8mm footage, so you don't get a long run on this. But you can see the fences down there.
Yeah. God, this is amazing.
It is amazing. And there's the stage there. You see it? Let me scroll back on that. That's kind of cool.
There it is.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
One of the people that I interviewed, and I'm sort of reminded of it now.
Hey, there are the Christmas lights there. You see, Mike?
Oh,
yeah, there's the Christmas lights. Yay! That's great. First time I've seen them in 51 years.
Look at that, man.
Wow.
Look at them.
They bought out every Christmas light in New York City in the month of August.
Yeah. Dan, you were saying something?
Oh, just one of the people who I interviewed, he said that like the popular culture has really gotten what it was like then wrong. And he's like, go back and look at the movie.
Yeah.
Everyone in that movie has short hair.
Yes.
All the things that were made later about Woodstock, like
no
fictionalized account, everyone has like flowing Robert Plant locks.
Yeah.
He's like, it wasn't like that. It was people with short hair, glasses, pocket protector for their pens.
Yep.
That's what it was like. And then they would just get naked and, go swimming.
Yeah. I mean, I was told if anybody did look like that they were from California or part of a commune.
Oh.
No tie-dye, a lot of striped shirts.
Striped, yeah, a lot of stripes. Yes. Okay. The helicopter pad. You got a state trooper there, and we got a message tree. You got messages going up here.
Right.
In the background, you see the messages?
Oh, yeah.
Look, a lot of the garbage already piling up. This is the Hog Farm free stage.
Right.
So we'll see the commune buses and then the free stage there. Anybody watching? This is the Sheets footage. Randy and Scott Sheets, and I forget the name of their other brother, were at Woodstock. And there's a nice shot of the stage there. So I would say Friday afternoon. I don't think this was Saturday yet. It doesn't look as crowded.
It doesn't look like as much of a crazy, massive.
There's still a lot of room. Yeah.
Yeah, these people are able to walk through.
Student strike.
Without like
Student strike T-shirt there.
Oh, and to his left, striped shirt, just like you were saying.
There it is. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, that's why I wore a striped shirt in honor of all the striped shirts.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes.
Keeping it real, man. Another striped shirt. See, the hill isn't even as packed yet,
Right,
so
right.
it's still.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. But here, I think they're putting in a well. They're putting in water. I think that's one of the Sheets brothers. What's that say? Oh, I can't tell what that says. Yeah, here's their park. Here's their camping area. So there's still a lot of room. Looks nice.
Yeah. It would not look like this for long.
No, exactly.
Yeah, these guys are probably thinking like, oh, this is great. I can just walk through the field and there's nobody here, and you know.
That must be Filippini Pond, or what I imagine it's Filippini Pond. This is cool. Man, why don't cars look like that anymore? We've lost our sense of style with car design.
We really have, actually. I would be very
God.
happy to see a 100% return to this entire aesthetic. That would please me greatly.
Look at this cat. This cat's filming something here. I wonder. Now, Lang told me that there were two filmmakers that showed up, English filmmakers that showed up, that he hired 2 weeks prior to Woodstock. And then when Wadley's team showed up, they were just like, oh, screw it. And they jumped on Wadley's team.
Yeah, because Artie Kornfeld made that deal, right?
Yes.
Independently. Yeah. And there might not have been total 100% communication between the two of them.
Oh, people that interview tell me that they actually took buses in from the Port Authority. So there were,
Yes.
and I have bus ads from New York Times and the Village Voice that say, oh, you know, traveling to Woodstock.
That's the bus that we take up to my mother-in-law who lives in the Catskills. It's the exact same bus line.
That's so funny. Yeah. That's amazing. Here's Chris Langhart's water piping, PCV. Now, I was told that Yasgur said that he didn't want trenches dug up in his field. So they had to put the piping on top. And they would have put it in the ground, but it was on top of the ground. Because Yasgur was like, no, please don't.
He said it was easier to just do it that way, though. So he didn't seem too upset about it.
Yeah. I mean, I heard people were walking on it. He had to fix things, but whatever.
Yeah, Professor Langhart has to be a genius to have come up with the bridge so the artists can go to the stage, to the backstage, came up with the med tent, came up with the phones, the irrigation system. I mean, the kind of stuff that and how much, no time to do it.
Yeah,
you know, kicked out of Wallkill. It rained for what, 18 out of 21 days. It's still the record for Sullivan County rain.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how he pulled it together.
Yeah, he told me, he goes, you know, he said, you know, I'd have an idea, and then I'd say, all right, there's a group of electricians over here, go tell them to do that.
Right.
There's a group of carpenters over here, go tell them to do that, and they got it done, right? I was at a party with a lot of, you know, you'd have to really know your shit to know that you were among super legends of rock and roll production. You know, I mean, John Chester, Bob Goddard, you know, all these incredible people that made rock and roll happen in this way, and music in general. And there was something wrong with Hanley's fridge. The arm broke off in the freezer by accident. Chris Langhart went out in Hanley's garage, came back in like an hour, and had fabricated an arm to just nicely wedge and fit into the refrigerator so the ice cream and the stuff could just sit there. Like,
that's the professor.
Oh man, brushed metal, no sharp edges. I mean, he was doing it.
Yeah, he was the kind of guy, like, you know, you could give him like an empty soda can, a whistle, and some string. And he would just come back with like a
telescope.
What's the problem?
Remember when tents used to look like that?
Yep.
Big honking poles.
I did not see a single one like that when I was glamping. Tent technology is...
So here they are. So they're actually... So people forget, Woodstock was intended to be a camping event. It's advertised as camping. And if you got there early enough with your shit, you were able to do that successfully. If not, you were lugging in big canvas tents and honking sleeping bags and cans of ravioli or whatever it was that you're eating. But these guys made it in early, and they're actually enjoying themselves. I've had interviews with people that tell me they didn't even make it to the concert. They just hung out on the periphery and just listened to it, kind of bellowing through the canyon there, you know, the valley. and didn't really bother going in. These guys are glamping.
Yes.
Look at that, blueberry pancakes.
Wow.
Nothing like a couple of blueberry pancakes right before a rock and roll show.
That's awesome, though. That's great.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great footage. Ford Country Squire station wagon. I think that's what that is.
You know,
I would drive around in that right now. I mean, I would
totally.
give up my Subaru Forester and drive around.
Totally.
Yep, there you go. The most expensive roll of toilet paper at Woodstock.
No, just what I see is like a lot of people just kind of like making it up as they go along.
Yeah.
And that we're not necessarily provided with guidelines for what to do.
Right.
And you just kind of showed up and made the best of it, but it worked, you know?
That's right.
You would not see that today.
Now, look at all the cars, man.
Right.
And they're the Porta Sands that got overwhelmed. Here, now we're close to the stage. We're at the security wall and the towers.
Jesus. Every time I see those towers, like I get a slight,
and
like, oh God.
this slow pan goes right up to, guess who? Oh, wait. He does it again, I think. Now they're really close to the stage. This has got to be like Saturday.
Oh man, that's where I was sitting. Holy mackerel.
Maybe we could find it.
Maybe you're in there.
Look at that. Yeah, really close.
Like a couple of hundred people to the
So
stage.
is that Quill? No, that looks like the Swami Satchidananda. And Peter Max was with him on stage. A lot of people don't know that. Remember in the film, the Swami was talking about the all of humanity. I don't know what he said. And he turns and Peter Max, a young Peter Max is right next to him. I think that's him.
He was sitting cross-legged.
Yeah.
At least from the photo in my book. And I'm not sure, I don't know, it was a little hard to tell in this footage if this was a cross-legged person.
Yeah. I said this last night, sorry for the redundancy, Mike, that Hanley builds this 12-foot high security wall from an aerial view. It looks like it's in a V-shaped funnel. And the reason is that anybody sitting too close to it is not going to be able to see the stage, the performance. So it forces them to move backward. It's like an effect. So by forcing people to sit further back, you create a natural egress. So people are able to walk around. So there's a reason why these are designed so high.
Smart.
Yeah, and he does it again at the West Palm Beach Pop Festival, but the land is flat. And and the land is sloping here, so people at a certain point were pissed off because they couldn't see even further back. So Wavy Gravy tells the story that he had to run in and ask Hanley to allow him to cut down, like literally right before the show, cut down the fence in front. So it's interesting. This was at West Palm Beach. Ooh. There we go.
I saw one of those cans with the pull tops.
Yes. Oh, that's Richie. So this is Friday.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, this is Friday.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. And there's the Swami. So some of this is edited, chopped up a little bit. There's the Swami.
I've still never seen anyone who plays the guitar the way Richie Havens did.
With his thumb.
But also with just the way he held it and he just
violent.
the crap out of it. Yeah.
It was violent, yeah. And he broke a string.
Didn't matter.
Nope.
No difference. Yeah, and he used all these weird tunings and I mean, nobody's copied him successfully.
Nope.
And that voice, my God, his voice was just amazing.
And he fixed that string and he talked to us like it was just a bunch of people in a backyard.
Amazing.
A bunch of barefoot hippies in the mud.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, that looks comfortable.
Yeah.
Nobody's glamping there.
No, there's very, very little glamour happening here.
Oh, there's Wavy.
Oh, hey. Oh God, this gives me.
Oh, look at that! I know, it's ridiculous. There's a light there.
Oh,
okay.
That
is, but I don't know what that is. Maybe one of those emergency lights you see on. Look at that! Oh, this footage is great because it does you get a glimpse into the Bindi Bazaar, which is very rare.
Yeah.
You never see what it's like in there. I mean, I've never seen any footage that exposes the inside of the Bindi Bazaar. Mike, did you make it back there?
No, at the time, I didn't even know there was a hot kitchen and they were giving out free food. I didn't know anything about a second stage. My circumference was like the lake and the stage, the lake and the stage. And I never traversed or knew what was going on with the hog farm.
Yeah.
There it is.
Did
you guys walk in the forest when you were up at Bethel last year? Because they had that open. They opened up the whole trail to the Bindi Bazaar and they cleared it. And there's still some artifacts, like large stones and tires and all sorts of stuff. Oh, it's really cool. Yeah. So look at that. So this is.
It's good that there's this footage.
Yeah, this is good.
I don't think a lot of people know about this.
No. Sleeping in the mud.
Yep.
That's just beautiful right
babies.
there, man. Yeah. Little babies.
Yeah. That baby is our age and
I know.
Owns an accounting office and is a Trump supporter. I kid.
Right.
And I will not go there with this.
Trump 2020.
I knew it would end up this way, guys. Jeez. Can't keep the politics out of it.
Can't you take us anywhere?
Great Zooms. John Kane was super. Thanks, Keith. Let's see who's listening out here. And how you guys running out of steam or what?
No, I'm talking about something.
I'm good.
Mike, you're good?
I'm hawking my book.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that.
I'm talking about myself. Come on.
Talking and hawking.
Yeah.
Guys, The Last Seat in the House, The Story of Hanley Sound, definitive book on the development of live concert sound, threaded through the life of Bill Hanley, sound engineer pioneer of Woodstock, the Woodstock Festival, and on Amazon, and Pilgrims of Woodstock, also on Amazon, Red Lightning, a beautiful book of never before seen stills, given a voice through the 30 interviews, oral history of those who attended the festival. Mike, what do you got to show?
This is Woodstock Back to Yasgurs Farm, and it has 32 interviews and different perspectives that I juxtaposed and hopefully weaved successfully into a whole, like a rug. It's all there. One-stop shopping. Get it today.
Your one-stop shop for Woodstock. Everything Woodstock.
Woodstock, 50 Years of Peace and Music by Dan Bukszpan. Go to barnesandnoble.com to buy it. You can get it at amazon.com, but go to Barnes & Noble.
Brought to you by K-Tel.
Yes, exactly. But wait, there's more.
I misspoke. Not like a rug, like a mosaic.
A gorgeous mosaic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, like a rug, a throw rug.
Yeah, it's like a rug,
Oh, that's funny. Well, favorite performance at Woodstock, guys. What's your favorite? If you were to just choose one, we're music guys.
Mike could actually tell us favorite performance that he saw.
Yes, Mike.
Yeah, give us a few more than one. Come on.
All right, top three performances in your view of Woodstock.
Well, I had to be Sly and the Family Stone.
Mm-hmm.
As a white kid from Newark, I never saw anything like that. Hard rock, funk, soul, jazz, craziness at an ungodly hour, telling us to raise our fist in the air and shout higher, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Had to be Sly and the Family Stone one. Oh God, Joe Cocker was the dividing point between the beautiful bucolic 60s tableau and the nightmare that followed. So that it all led up to Joe Cocker when it changed irrevocably. So I would say that's two. And the third one has to either be Johnny Winter or the band, because I love Johnny Winter and the band. And they were both so good that night. I mean, the band traded instruments. I had never seen a band play. The bass guy gave the guitar guy gave, who knew? The drummer played the mandolin. and their voices rang out in the black of night, just like the record. Thank you, Bill Hanley.
Yeah.
Amazing. And Canned Heat, I mean, Canned Heat was so great. Anyway, how about the ones I hated? What they talked about, they said Quill was going to be successful. They were terrible. They sounded like a bunch of guys banging on pots.
I
and the
think
Grateful
that they
Dead,
literally were banging on pots.
We're down to 5 viewers. You just lost a bunch of Quill fans out there.
Sure. Okay, fine. I'll be quiet.
No, go ahead, man. Tell us.
Keep going.
Well, and how about Creedence Clearwater Revival? They were waiting backstage during the awful Grateful Dead, and when they came out, everybody was practically asleep. And they, again, their primal pre-Americana rock that sounded just like the record. They were perfect. I don't know why Fogerty says that he didn't like it enough to put in the movie, that it wasn't an accurate representation of their sound. He thought they didn't play good.
It was excellent.
He's wrong. It was excellent. And it was one of the highlights of the whole festival. I loved Creedence Clearwater Revival back then, and still do.
Stu Cook told me like that was all like managerial politics and like that sort of thing. It had nothing to do with the performance at all. That's what he said. But apparently it had more to do with like, the film rights, and it was all political. That was really what it was about.
The other thing, Janis was not good. Janis was too drunk or high. The band was amateurish, and it came home to roost when Sly and the Family Stone came on next and made those folks look like an amateur band in comparison. Yeah. Of course you liked seeing Janis, but she wasn't very good that night, that particular night.
Yeah. I think for me, definitely 10 Years After. I love 10 Years After so much.
And 10 Years After.
Oh, my
yes, loved him.
I love Alvin Lee and all those cats. I interviewed Leo Lyons, and I got to see the original 10 Years After. They did a small reunion tour in the late 90s, and they came around, and I'm like, I dropped everything and just went to that, and that was incredible. I tried my damnedest to meet them and get some autographs. It didn't happen. I would definitely have to say Joe Cocker for me. Just, I never get sick of his performance. It just gives me kind of tingly all over every time I watch it. It's such a powerful performance, and in a lot of different ways. And probably, it has to be Sly. I mean, just the sheer force of that. I mean, my only reference point is the other recordings in the film, and obviously the recordings stand up. It's just a beautifully recorded event and set. But just watching it, the clips that I've seen, man, it must have been, like they say, like a spaceship arriving, landing.
And he was at the height of his
power. Oh my God. Yeah.
I'll never forget. I made everybody laugh around me when I had to go to the bathroom so bad during Sly, and I saw an empty bottle, and I made a big joke about taking a leak on the Sly, and I did, but everybody just thought that was so funny. I think we went into a stoned out laughing thing for like a song and a half.
Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Dan?
Well, what I heard from like 99% of the people that I interviewed was Sly and the Family Stone was like, that was it. Like there was no competing with that.
You agree with that? Was that what you like? Your top three?
That was I mean, of all 32 performances, it was certainly like the most energetic. It was certainly the one that brought it right to the audience the most, for sure. Jimi Hendrix going on at 9 a.m. on a Monday, when everyone's, returning to the office with their coffee and donuts, and, and then he's over here doing the Star Spangled Banner. I've heard better performances by him, but I mean, just for me personally, that was like one of the earliest recordings I ever heard that got me interested in playing the guitar. I learned to play the Star Spangled Banner specifically because of that performance.
Wow.
But I would say the performance that probably had the most effect on me, and I'm going to put a little asterisk after this to remind myself of something, was The Who's performance.
Yeah.
Because that got me interested in distorted guitar, and, Tommy was one of my favorite albums.
Yeah.
But what I do want to say, and this is important, was that every single person who I talked to including Michael Lang, said that Pete Townsend was the most gigantic asshole they'd ever worked with in their entire life. And Michael Lang said he was the biggest pain in the ass the whole weekend. And I was like, "Are you sure you want to say that?" And he's like, "Yeah, you can print that." So I was like, okay, all right.
Well, listen, Pete Townsend is a genius, and so isn't Paul Simon. We had this conversation before.
Right.
Paul Simon's a genius, and I've heard the same thing about him, you know.
Some people... The Who have made some of my favorite music ever.
Me too.
That I've been listening to since I was like 11 years old.
Yes.
I love it. Pete Townsend, when I see him talk, I have to just shut it off.
What's your favorite Who album?
Oh God,
mine's Who by Numbers, man. I have a softie for that one.
That's a great record.
It
totally
really
underrated.
is, dude. It is very underrated.
For me, it's either Tommy or Quadrophenia.
Yeah, Quadrophenia.
Yeah, but I mean, there was just that little chunk of time there where they were just everything they were doing was fantastic.
I gotta throw props out to Mountain though. Boy, did I love Mountain.
Yeah. I mean,
that lead guitar split the night. I was so loud that I felt it, and the bass, I felt it in my stomach.
Yeah.
They were loud, but they didn't hurt. So it wasn't like a trebly. Again, thank you, Bill Hanley. But they were that I felt them in my body.
Leslie West was the second best guitar player that weekend, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
And besides Alvin Lee?
Besides Alvin Lee.
Next to Hendrix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And to this day, I feel like Leslie West has not gotten a fraction of the accolades that he deserves.
That's true.
He's an amazing guitar player. So good.
They were a huge band, though, you know.
Yep.
So just to be reminded, the Who go on at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Saturday morning.
Poor Jefferson Airplane having to go on at 7 or whatever it was. Like.
So remind me, do the Who is the Naked Eye in that set? They just play all Tommy, right?
Right.
No, there was others.
Okay.
I'll tell you exactly.
All right. And then they play the Isle of Wight.
Right.
That same year. So was that 69 or 70?
Isle of Wight was 70.
Oh, okay.
But the earliest recording I have of the Who playing the Naked Eye, I think, was 71. They did it on. They put out a full concert as like the second CD with a reissue of Who's Next, and that's the earliest one that I.
But that's on the Isle of Wight soundtrack.
It is?
The Who performance at Isle of Wight is Naked Eye. That's one of my favorite Who tunes, man. I love that song so
much. They closed Woodstock with the Naked Eye.
Oh.
After My Generation, Shaking All Over, Summertime Blues, and the entire time.
I'm gonna have to go to the Andy Zach's set recordings and get myself acquainted.
And I need to stop sniffing glue before I do these panels.
And I can't explain.
Wait, it doesn't really sound like you know what you're talking about, Dan.
No. You just have me on for my looks. That's the only reason I do these panels.
Well, you made the mistake. Now we've been elevated.
Yes.
I can't explain is one of my favorite Who songs, and I was fighting it to stay up. I really wanted to see him, and I got to see I Can't Explain. But the very next song, It's a Boy, and then they do Tommy, and I saw 2 songs out of 23 before I fell asleep. They couldn't wake me up, and neither could the Jefferson Airplane. I slept through their entire set.
Oh my God! I tried so hard to get a Townsend or Daltrey interview for my book, but I did manage to get a Pridden interview. Bob Pridden, the sound engineer for the Who, another legend in the field, and he was just a real sweet guy. And I want to thank all these people that have helped. We should all thank all of these people that have contributed to our work, because we would just have a book of hearsay or just regurgitated research that's been floating around the universe these
John,
years.
The next time you talk to Bill Hanley, please tell him that Greenblatt didn't stop mentioning him in this Zoomstock. It was Hanley that turned me on to John Morris and Professor Langhart and Chip Monk and Joshua White, and it all came from Hanley.
He's a force, an undeniable force behind all of it. I mean, without his sound system and recording efforts, which were pulled up, Eddie Kramer gets a lot of credit for participating and leading the recording effort of the Woodstock soundtrack. And, there's no denying that he doesn't have his piece of the pie carved out with regard to this sort of legendary. But there's a lot of things in there that are left out in the Eddie Kramer interviews for whatever reason, because it happens a lot with Hanley, because Hanley never speaks up for himself. He's not a good self-promoter. There's a lot of the history had not been accounted for until I came into the picture. So, Eddie Kramer shows up in a crushed velvet blue blazer and big flailing bell bottoms and pointed leather shoes in the mud, and he's, from what I hear, he's pissed off about that, and he gets stuck in the back of this trailer without watching any of the group. But it's on Hanley's equipment. All of that equipment that came up from the Fillmore East was Hanley's equipment. Hanley had that recording equipment, the Scully 8-tracks and all that, and all those feeds going up into the Fillmore stage, all those recordings on Wolfgang's vault for a certain period of time. Hanley's responsible for that. But when Hanley wasn't there, Eddie Kramer would jump on and he would record. So there were other people manning the recording console, but Hanley is responsible for the recording of the Woodstock, and Hanley leads that effort. It's his equipment, and he appoints Lee Osborne. Lee Osborne is another professor of audio in the film department at NYC School of the Arts. Langhart's a professor. We have all these professors and students that kind of make up the staff at Fillmore. And again, we should be thankful for Bill Graham for having the foresight to put together a super team of engineers in this think tank of rock and roll production. But so every interview that I ever encountered of Eddie Kramer talking about, people asking, so Eddie, what was it like recording Woodstock? He very rarely mentions Hanley, and if he does, he says the equipment was put together with fishing wire and gum. He says that all the time. Fishing, and it just pisses me off because it's not true. I mean, I have in the book, and that's another thing I debunk in the book is how the recording was facilitated, what sort of effort was involved to get the recording done, to make it happen. Those tapes, Hanley doesn't hand over those tapes until Warner Brothers demands them at a certain point, because then it becomes Warner Brothers property. The mixdowns were led by Lee Osborne, and Hanley does not allow the mixdowns of the soundtrack to be done unless Lee Osborne is the one appointed to it. Otherwise, he doesn't release them. And I know this because I have a letter from Warner Brothers saying, okay, Hanley, we're ready for the tapes, send them or else. And finally, Bill tells me the story. His former manager, his shop manager, tells me the story, how it went down. And Lee Osborne, sadly, is no longer with us, so he can't give his side. But it's Hanley. It is Hanley. And Andy Zaks, who puts together the definitive collection, calls me up, knows of my research. Last year, February, maybe even before that, can you identify this? Do you know what this is? Help me. I found some recordings over here. Were there any other recordings being done on stage? I help him figure out his piece of the puzzle, and there it is. But at least Andy Zaks knows, and he credits Hanley as being the responsible person. And it's on the back of the Woodstock album. It says recorded by Hanley Sound. He did a lot of recordings. The most notably James Brown live at the Apollo 2
that
album.
was him?
Yep. But that wasn't the Apollo Theater. There was another venue called the Apollo in in Jersey or something like that, in Atlantic City or something like that. But he says, James Brown says, put the Apollo on there. So
the consummate salesman.
Live at the Cafe a Go-Go, the Blues Project, that's Hanley. The Cowsills Live, their one album. I love the Cowsills, man. They don't get enough credit. It's good kind of pop, 60s pop, but it's great stuff. But
he said he was going to, his next thing, which he never got to do, which boy, he would have made her sound so much better. He was going to go on the road with Janis Joplin, but then she died.
Who, Hanley?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hanley. I mean, Hanley gets asked to go on the road with the Beatles, and he doesn't go.
He
There are a
was going
lot
to go
of
with Janice.
yeah. So Albert Grossman is Janice's manager. Grossman is a board member of the Newport Festival Board, Folk Festival Board. Hanley finishes up at Newport in '67. So Grossman knows about Hanley. And so from what I remember, the chronology goes that when the Cosmic Blues Band, when Janice dumps her,
Full tilt boogie.
when they're gone, and then starts to think about forming the Cosmic Blues Band, right? Hanley's invited at a party by Sid Portier in New York City on some beautiful apartment he owned by Central Park, and Janice is there. I mean, it was an all-star cast. At that party, Janice asks Hanley to go on tour.
Wow.
With yes. So
how about that?
Yeah. Well, then Janice does some test shows with Grossman, and then I find out this is really a mindfuck because the college I was going to for my doctoral degree was Franklin Pierce. So in '69 or '70, it must have been late. I have to look up the dates, but yeah, because she ends up at Woodstock with the Cosmic Blues Band. That's the Cosmic Blues Band, right?
I'll tell you right now.
Sam Andrew and then the other.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So in early '69, spring, Albert Grossman sets up some dates for Janice to test out the new band and to test a new sound system. That one of those tests was done at a winter carnival at Franklin Pierce University, where I was attending. So I managed to get a PDF of the account of that actual happening there. So I'm able to put together this chronology from that party, Sidney Portier, and then these tour dates. Janice's site has definitive tour dates all the way down the line of where she was, and all along up until Woodstock. So it's pretty incredible. But Grossman saying testing out a new sound system is just, it's just fab. And then, of course, Sam Baroda, one of his lead engineers, says, "Oh yeah, we were with him. We did those dates and boom, boom, boom." And there's a little side story, for anybody that, Hanley just, it's nonchalant for him. Like, oh, I was at a party, Sidney Portier's house,
Right.
Yeah. I was sitting on a bomb. And my book opens up with Hanley sitting on a bomb in 1970 on a flight, an Allegheny Airline flight out of Pittsburgh. There was a guy, an ex-Marine, who was pissed off about something that had a gun pointed to the neck of the stewardess, and the guy plants a bag with fluid in it and batteries and the whole deal in a bag underneath Hanley's seat, and Hanley didn't know it was under his seat. So my book opens up with Hanley trying to figure out and dealing with the bomb, and it's just, he's a sound guy, you know what I mean? What does that have to do with sound, But he was everywhere, but
yeah.
Kind of just little side stories that make him not just a sound guy,
Well, one of those dates that Janice went on after Woodstock was not Atlantic City, Asbury Park Convention Hall. And the story about her and Bruce Springsteen got censored out of my book.
Wow.
Springsteen standing against the wall. He's a local legend. He's in Steel Mill or one of those bands, early bands, hair down to here. And Janice always liked to find some talent in each city to take back to the hotel room or even back on the bus. And she spots Bruce and she leaves the stage and she goes right up to him and goes, "Stick around, honey, after the show." And she goes back, finishes the concert, and Bruce gets the hell out of there fast. And that's been confirmed. It's in Bruce's book. It's in Clive Davis's book. Somehow, it's not my book.
Did they just feel like you don't have the legal right to tell that story and we do?
Corroboration from 2 published books. Come on.
Yeah.
I think it was purely arbitrary. I mean, space or whatever.
Oh, the editor cut it out?
Yeah, and I got to say, Paul Kennedy, he did a great job. The pictures are beautiful, but he did censor that that out. He also censored out JFK's inaugural speech where he predicted the rise of the counterculture. Willie Nile, singer-songwriter Willie Nile went to Woodstock, and he talked about, JF being inspired by JFK's inaugural speech when he got elected. And so I put it in. I thought it was a beautiful adjunct to the festivities, and it was taken out.
Wow. Well, Dan, it's coming on 9 o'clock. You said you had to go. Okay,
I'm about to turn into a pumpkin.
All right, let's take a look at some of the questions, and we'll let you guys go. Give one last plug. I want to thank everybody that tuned in. We had a pretty consistent 30 people on two different feeds. One feed had 15, another had 14. It's good. Yeah.
None of my friends could figure it out.
I don't. It's because you couldn't figure it out.
No, but they wait until I'm actually on to ask me about it and text me about it. Maybe they could have gotten to me at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, next time we'll figure it out. So let's see what people, and like I said, I want to thank Mike Greenblatt and Dan Bukszpan for joining this wonderful. I'm John Kane, and joining this wonderful. What do we call it? An authors panel here. We all have written books about Woodstock. We know too much about an event. Well, Mike was there. We weren't there. For two generous Gen Xers, we know too much about a festival that we weren't even.
I know a lot about the Civil War too, and I wasn't there either, so it's okay.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Dan. All right, here we go. So what are people saying? Tomorrow, August 18th, is the anniversary of when Sha Na Na preceded Jimmy. This is the great Henry Gross solo at Bethel. Someone's posting a link. I'm not going to open up a link right now. A Day in the Garden was in '99 on Yasgurs Farm. I was there. I met the guy who was in the Woodstock film Porta Toilet Scene.
Oh,
yes, he's a cool guy.
Awesome.
He's in my book. Yeah, that guy's insane. You ever hear the story about that? Why that guy was in the toilet when he came out?
Oh, I thought he was just like smoking weed in there, and then
no, he was a truck driver for the guy who ran the electric factory in Philadelphia, that venue there. Was that in Philadelphia? I think that was in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and it was a concert hall. It was
concert
big.
hall, yeah. So the guy who ran that, I forget his name. He is also a festival promoter. He runs festival productions or festival something. I'll think of it. Anyway, those guys work for him. They drive up with fruit, a cube truck filled with extra equipment for Hanley, just in case he needed it. And they're selling fruit. They go to all these festivals and they sell fruit at these festivals. So they're two guys selling fruit. They sell their fruit, and then they get backstage because they have credentials, and they're there on Jefferson Airplane's pass. And it was windy, so they needed a place to light the hash pipe. And they go. So when that gentleman comes out of the portisan with the very ornate hash pipe,
right,
there's 6 other people inside that portisan.
How is that even possible?
Exactly. It's so funny. So just a little side note. So Greg, my friend Greg Heimson. Hey, Greg, anyone know who was depicted in the signs on the wooden fence around the stage? I saw a couple of different bearded guys. So there's a lot of political ephemera pasted or stamped onto the wall, the security wall. Mike, maybe you can answer that.
I saw the Cuban revolutionary guy. His face was plastered all around.
Oh, really?
Come on, help me out here.
Che Guevara, you mean?
Che Guevara. We all wanted to be Che Guevara, revolutionaries. I saw his bearded face all over the place. Who else did I see? I saw a lot of Malcolm X. He had just been assassinated. No, did Malcolm X get assassinated before Woodstock or after? But I saw a lot of Malcolm X. There was a lot of politics going on.
Right.
Yeah. Hopefully that answered your question, Craig. How are you, buddy? So that's it. I think we've covered a lot for a couple of guys a couple of guys on a Monday night. It's Monday, right?
It's Monday.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
We had stiff competition. We're going up against Bernie Sanders.
I know.
I tried to get him on the show. Maybe he could talk about Woodstock. But, He didn't go to Woodstock, did he?
I have no idea.
I mean, if he
Not
said
to-
he,
not
if he
to my
said
knowledge.
he, if he said he did, I'd believe it.
I believe everything he said.
So what's next for you authors?
Dan?
I'm doing. I have a lot of pitches out there. Nobody's biting, just because that's how it is right now. Just being Dan Bukszpan, basically.
It's a hard job.
It is a hard job. Yeah,
So
exactly.
Dan's also a wonderful co-host of
Yes.
a
Rush.
podcast,
A Rush podcast. Yeah.
Two guys talking Rush. If anybody's into Rush, check it out. Hey, we almost have 1,000 downloads already. We've only got 5 episodes out. That's pretty
crazy.
good.
That's
good.
crazy. Yeah.
Now you have to have me on. I could be the heel.
Okay.
We want a hater on.
Critic.
Yeah, we want haters actually. So
episode 50, when we run out of material and start to talk about Steely Dan, we'll bring you on. Oh man, we just lost a bunch of people just from that one comment.
Wow, doesn't take much.
No, Mike, what are you working on, buddy?
Last Stop Penn Station is a story about ticket scalping in New York City, as well as drug dealing. And there's a lot of scumbags in this particular story. It also has to do with professional wrestling and Puerto Rico and magazine publishing. And it's going to be graphic. I get to fulfill some of my Henry Miller fantasies because there's the sex in it. I got into sort of graphically. There's also a lot of drugs, and it should be fun.
Nice.
You said drugs like 3 times. It can only be good.
Well, my editor for the Woodstock book said, Mike, what's with the drugs? I go, well, it's Woodstock, man. And he goes, yeah, but on every page?
Yes,
like
on every page.
In here, I think I mentioned drugs every page.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well,
that wasn't information you had to fish for either. It's every single person I talked to. They were talking about how much pot they smoked, every time they smoked it, what strain it was. That's what it was, and people need to retain that.
For those I interviewed, I asked the question about drugs, and yes, there were drugs. It was nothing like Altamont or anything like that, but and even later on, I think the drugs got heavier at these festivals, these mass gatherings. But one thing that was consistent is that every 30 seconds or so, a joint or a pipe was getting passed around at Woodstock. No matter where you were, where you were sitting, there was always a constant flow. And when you look at the pictures, there's just like this hanging cloud
above everything.
And when Max Yasgur got on stage and said those words that still make me cry about how a bunch of people could get together for 3 days of music and peace and have nothing but music and peace, I remember shouting out, "Don't forget drugs!"
Yeah, exactly.
My friend,
look, I think all the marijuana, honestly, was part of why it was a peaceful event. I don't think that's a small thing, Yeah.
World leaders take note.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Greg says Bernie's wife, Jane, went to Woodstock. Oh, we should get her on the show.
Yeah.
Let's see, any other questions? Any questions, folks, before we end this panel? I think I've driven Woodstock into the ground this year with this Zoomstock. But I think people have enjoyed.
Yeah, seriously.
Carrying the torch, you youngins that were too young to go. I applaud you both.
Yeah, well, thank you. And again, we'll get on the line. You want to pitch your book again so people who are watching know why we're doing this? Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I've said everything about it that needs to be said. Maybe I could show, and my mom is such a story about such a character in the story. She took a picture of me right before I left for Woodstock.
Groovy.
And like hours before Woodstock. I wish I looked like that now, but I'll tell you, it's the personal story that makes this book what it is.
Awesome. And what's the name of your book again?
Who, me?
Yes, Mike. What's the name of your book? So people can buy it.
Oh, yes. It's Woodstock, Back to Yasgurs Farm by Mike Greenblatt with a foreword by Country Joe McDonald.
Woo!
And you will read what happened between Country Joe McDonald and Janis Joplin before the set. That wasn't censored out. And it's graphic.
Whoa.
Terribly, terribly graphic.
Dan?
Okay. Woodstock, 50 years of peace and music, wherever fine books are sold. Buy several. Start arguments.
They
Good
make
times.
great gifts.
They make, yes, makes a
They do
great
make
gift.
great gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can any of these books be signed or bought from
Yes.
you and signed? Do you have websites to share? I mean,
Yeah, I finally made my own website. It's notoriousbuk.com. And yeah, you can actually, I am doing autographed books. If you want them, please contact me through the handy dandy contact form and we'll make it happen.
I don't have a website, but you can find me on Facebook, and the book costs $25. But if you give me $31, I'll autograph it for you and mail it to you. That's just covers the cost of stamps for mailing the book.
Mike, why don't you have a web? Oh, we'll have to talk about that. I might be able to. Do you want that? Do you want that stuff?
You know how tech challenged I am. I was watching your thing last night for 45 minutes trying to figure out how to join you, and I made it the last 10 minutes like a special guest star.
You were like stomping on your screen like a caveman, like throwing dirt at it.
I was getting very frustrated.
No, you were just Jimi Hendrix coming on at 9 in the morning on a Monday. That's what it was.
That's funny. Okay, one last plug. So The Last Seat in the House, the story of Hanley Sound. University Press of Mississippi, released in late February, definitive book on the development of early live concert sound out of public address. Bill Hanley is a disruptor of public address and creates a shift in the clarity, legibility, intelligibility of music and sound reinforcement. He is an inventor and innovator of sound systems. We owe him a lot of credit. He's a pioneer and the sound engineer of Woodstock, and that's why we're here today. There are several chapters on Bill's influence at Woodstock, so you can find that on Amazon. And my 2019 book, Coffee Table. I hate saying coffee table book, but it in many ways,
the industry.
I know I hate that. But oral histories, over 30 interviews of a diverse selection of voices. I made sure of that. I tried my hardest to make this a unique take, not the same old Woodstock book, but a unique take of different stories, juxtaposed to never before seen photos by photojournalist Richard F. Bellack, now deceased, but in his honor. And one thing I could say about this book is that although these photos had never been seen before, and Bellack was an aspiring photographer, his work was hanging right next to Henry Diltz and Baron Wollman at the museum last year. And the ghost of Bellack, if there was one, I hope he was just like, yes, that his work, this Woodstock work, was shown, and there it is. This concludes the final day of Zoomstock 51 until 52.
Till Zoomstock 52, man.
What do we do next year? Are you gonna have another Woodstock book out, or what are you gonna?
We'll figure something out.
We'll just keep selling the same books for another 20 years. You can't find it anywhere, but yeah. Oh, anyway, www.thelastseatinthehouse.com and www.pilgrimsofwoodstock.com if you're interested in getting a signed book. And that's it. Productive. We were productive, gentlemen.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
That was fun.
Being productive during a pandemic.
Thank you for asking me to do this. That was
thank you.
Good. It'll be recorded. I'll put it on YouTube. You can share it there, and I'll create a watch party on the old Facebook where you can reshare it and you can create your own watch party. I can walk you through that too, Mike, if you want to do that at some point.
It's like easy to assemble instructions.
Just like IKEA.
IKEA, right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Later, guys.
Bye-bye.
Peace. Bye, everybody out there.